I say hello and welcome. My name is Lisa Shea. I am an author of nearly 500 books. I am an artist and the president of the Blackstone Valley Art Association, and I enjoy all sorts of different kinds of things. You can see on the Photoshop screen that I happen to have up some of my cyanotypes that my cats are posing with, some of my photography of abstract photography. So I do all sorts of different things. And I thought today that we would do another round of mandalas, and hopefully this time we will do it without the cat climbing all over me and pushing buttons for me, which is always a little exciting. So I'm going to show you how to do mandalas in Photoshop, and you need to have I think it started in 2020. It could have been a little earlier than that, but not an ancient version of Photoshop to have the symmetry option in it. So as long as you've got a version that has symmetry in it, then you will be okay for doing this. So let's see how mandalas work. I'm going to be using, let's see if I can hold this up in the screen, a Wacom tablet. This happens to be their small size, I believe. This is a PTH451, which I think, yeah, the small size. So this is what I'm using. It just makes it a little easier for me because I can draw with the stylus and make shapes on it. But you can do this with a mouse too, so you do not need a tablet at all to be able to do this. It's just a little easier for me. My hands are a little shaky, and this helps make it easier for me to try to draw the shapes. Alright, so I've got my tablet and my stylus set up over here. And we will start by creating a new document. So hit Create New. And let's do 1,000 by 1,000. That'll be fine. You could do whatever size you want to. I'm just doing some random shapes here. All right, so we have a starting point. So from this starting point, I'm going to say that I want to use a brush tool because I like to do these with brush tools. And that's a little big. I'm going to make the size of my brush a little smaller. Yeah, that seems a little better. And then over here on the right, let me just make sure that you can see this, is a shape of a butterfly. So when you're in the brush tool or the pencil tool, you'll have this option to turn on symmetry. And you've got also different types of symmetry that you can do. You could just double it vertically, horizontally, circles, spirals. So I like to do, of course, the mandala one because I love mandalas. So we're going to choose mandala, and you can have all sorts of different segment counts, so like slices of the pie, from 3 up to 10. I happen to like 8, but you can choose whatever segment type you want. All right, so we're going to choose 8. It shows you what the dimensions are. Let's make this image a little bigger, just so it fills the screen a little more. So yeah, let's click OK. So we're going to go to Image, Size. Let's do 2,000 by 2,000. And View Fit in Screen. There we go. All right, that gives us a little better space to work with so that you can see what's going on here. All right, so these are your guidelines for the pie slices. So anything you do in one of these pie slices is going to be replicated across the other pie slices in a symmetrical kind of way. So I'm just going to do a scribble to show you. See how anything that I do is duplicated in there. So I'm just scribbling. That actually looks like some sort of a face of a person with a hat on it and a body and then like a dress and then legs. That's pretty intriguing. All right, so I'm going to do Edit Undo. But that gives you a general sense of what we're going to be up to. So I'm going to turn my brush color to black because I like to do things in black. You can do any color you want. So on. All right, so we got a black brush. We got a little brush size. I'm going to push my keyboard out of the way. Bring my tablet over so I have a little better access to it. And go over here towards the middle. Right, I also have to be careful not to push the buttons with my thumb. The stylus has 2 buttons on it. I have this tendency to push things with my thumb that I don't mean to push. Alright, so I start in the middle and I do little tiny shapes to create a center point. Now I'm just holding down my stylus and wiggling it. The downside of doing this is if I hit undo, it's going to undo everything that I'm doing. But I like creating this flow. At some point I should probably stop. Alright, so that was all done with one stroke. I like to do that because it's flowy and relaxing to me, but I also want to comment that there is that downside. If you happen to do something that you consider a mistake, or your hand jerks, or your cat knocks your hand over, then you can't just undo a piece of it, because that's all considered one long stroke, and it will undo the entire stroke altogether. So I will start there. We'll go like that. Like that. So it's doing all of those symmetry. Hopefully you can see that I am just drawing in one spot, and it is mirroring what I'm doing in all of those other dimensions. Okay? So it seems really complicated, and I think it's one of those things where if you try it a couple times, you'll start to get a sense of what it's doing and why it's doing it and so on. So let's save this one. Now we'll just put them in here. Mandala 1. Alright, let's do some other kinds of mandalas. So we'll create a new, now let's do 2000 by 2000 since, let's try 1600 by 1600, see how big that is. Alright, that's pretty good. Alright, so I got the 1600 by 1600 square. I still got the brush tool selected. Let's make it a little smaller this time. How about 9 pixels? And we're going to turn on Symmetry Mandala. Let's do 6, just to try something else. Alright, so now we've got a 6-segment mandala, and I'll click the little check box to accept it. A 6-segment mandala, a slightly smaller brush. I like to start in the middle just because that's the way I am. You don't have to start in the middle. You can start anywhere you go. And let me try doing a looser one this time, instead of being so tightly wound. So I'm just slowly tracing, do some circly things. Oh, that actually looks like people holding each other. Right, not stop, keep going. Well, let's do some more circly things. Alright, so that's much looser shapes with a fewer number of segments and more circular kinds of shapes, and you can see that it came out with its own different kind of style. Alright, so I will save that one. I will type in the chat, we are doing mandalas today. Alright, we'll save that one as Mandala 2. File new. I like this 1600 by 1600. That's a good size. Right, let's go even a little smaller. How about 8? I could just type in an 8 if I wasn't being so... Fine, we'll just type in an 8. Let's do 10 segments mandala. Go up to 10. Alright, so now we got a 10 segment mandala with a very small brush. Keep my fingers away from the stylus buttons. Alright, let's do sharp angles this time. Trying to give it more of a sharp feel. Alright, so that has 10 segments. It has a thinner line that I used, and it has sharper strokes that I was using to make the lines. And you can see that it has its own type of feel to it. So none of these feels are right or wrong. Clearly, that's all, you're an artist, and it's what you feel like expressing and the kind of mood you're in. So if you're in a sharp, jagged edged feel, you could do really thin lines that are all very sharp and do something like this. If you're in a different mood, then you could do something different. You could do soft curled things with a big thick brush and just a few segments. So here, let's save this one as Mandala 3. And now something that you can do is Photoshop has the idea of layers. So we're going to add on another layer. So now we're on layer 2. So that other stuff that we just did is on the background layer. And we can make that visible and invisible. So that's below us. So now if we wanted to, we could choose a different color. Well, let's go with red. Red is an edgy color. Let's go more of that kind of red. Yeah. All right. So now we got a red color selected for our pen. And I'm going to come down. Where did I put my mouse? There we go. All right, got my mouse in the middle. All right, so now with my red pen, so I'm on an entirely different layer, but it's maintaining the same symmetry. And the things I'm doing now are not directly interfering with that lower layer. So I can turn off the red layer. I can turn off the underlying layer. But now I've got this 2-layer thing, and I can play with it. Each of them, had its 10 segments, so I've got, lots of different segments. And if I wanted to, so I'm on layer 1, which is the top layer, the red layer. See, I've got the little rotate. All right, so I selected this with my selection tool, which is the pair of arrows in the top left. So it's the move tool selection tool. I clicked on the red lines that I drew, and when I hover underneath this bottom center spot, you can see there's a little left and right arrow for rotating. I can now rotate that and make it slightly offset from the under one. So this is sort of like now I've got 20 segments because I've got 10 segments on the lower level and the 10 segments on the upper level, which I can either align the way I had it originally aligned, or I can align it any way I want to around that center point. So you can sort of see how it's doing different kinds of things to the underlying shape depending on where exactly I place it. And you could do animation with this if you wanted to. You could create different sections along a stop animation thing. That's sort of neat, where the inner red lines line up exactly with the inner things. Yeah, so if I do that and then just slide a little more, now those inner red lines and that center area line up right along those black things, and I think that's pretty cool. So we'll choose it there. All right, so you can do this again. You could do all sorts of different colors and make it denser and denser as you go. And then you could put all of this on top of some sort of other picture. So you could have some sort of picture in the background and then a mandala over it, and then another color mandala over it, and so on. So we'll save this as Mandala 4. Let's save it as a, didn't mean to save it as a PSD. So you could do a 1-layer mandala. You could do multiple layers. You could, I chose red for my second layer, but you could just keep choosing black as the second layer and do something simple on the first layer and then decorate in it to the second layer and then decorate it in it to the third layer, however you want it to do. So we'll choose another 16 by 100, 1600 by 1600. Go back to black. I like black. I like to think of these sort of as coloring book things where you can, I have a lot of friends who do the colored pencils and do colored pencils inside the mandala shape. So I like posting these for my friends so that they can print them out and color them if they want to. All right, so we got black. and for that reason, when I choose the brush, I tend to like a reasonably thick brush size. So we'll go back to like 10, I guess. Because I want it thin enough that the inner shapes don't all just turn into mush, and thick enough so that if you're doing it with colored pencil or something like that, that you can actually see the lines that you're working with and have something to divide up the separate color parts. Right, so we chose 10 pixels. Mandala. Well, let's do 7, just to show you what an odd number mandala looks like. All right, so instead of having even slices up and down, left and right, and at the diagonals, if you choose odd numbers, it's going to do it to give you even slices at the odd number, which isn't going to look quite as exactly symmetrical, but it will still work in terms of doing a mandala out of it. So we're going to get our mouse to the middle. It's just the way I like. You don't need to start in the middle. You can start anywhere that you want to. So middle. Let's try to do a flowery one this time. And it's important to remember, if you have a shaky hand and your hand suddenly does a little twitch or something like that, then it's okay. Just hit undo and start again. And you might say to yourself, oh, but I had this really pretty shape that I liked a lot. Well, so the next one will be different. And that is alright. Alright. So it's sort of like a flower. So we'll save that one. Save these as JPEGs. Oh, see, my cat's coming up, so we may have cats stepping on buttons again. That will be alright. And actually, when I'm looking at the small thumbnails of these, that Mandala 4 with the red in it actually came out really pretty. So it's not as good, in my point of view, for a coloring book because it's already got all that red in there and there's lots of little tiny things for people to deal with. But some people might like that. They might like having a red base for it and then they can add in colors that they think goes with red. So you never know what will strike someone's fancy, or if you're doing this for Cafe Press or Zazzle or one of those other sites that let you put these onto mugs and t-shirts and so on. It could be that the red one is much better for putting onto mugs or other kinds of tasks. So let's see, we were up to Mandala 5. Alright. So along that line, let's see, what if we chose purple? More of that kind of a purple. And what if we added a new layer? Alright, so now we're up on the second layer. So this, the black layer that you see there is the background layer. So it's underneath, and now we're up on a second layer. Just so if we need to make changes and stuff, we know that that first layer is set and won't be touched or changed in any way. Alright, so now we're on the second layer. And I want to think about where I'm going to draw purple so that it complements this thing that I've done already. So I will go through there. Well, what if I sort of... see, I was going to start tracing things and then my mind changed. Alright, I'm not liking the doubling. So see, now I can do edit undo. And try again. And that lower level is perfectly safe. If we do that, and we do that, and we do that, and we do this. And then we go out like that. don't know that I'm keen on that, but I mean, part of this is trying and practicing and seeing what you like. I think part of what I'm not keen on is the color of the purple against the other ones. So we can go into Image, Adjustments, Hue, which is how we get to the changing the color stuff. And what if we slide it a little towards, does this make me happier? I think that's a little better. Well, let's try saving this as a JPEG. Mandalas 6. So, on one hand, I said I didn't think I liked it as much, but when I look at these two things side by side, I think I do like the purple one, when you glance at it, more than the black one. So it's useful to look at them in a small size and get an overall sense of what they look like and see what you are drawn to. But you can see that they have very different feels to them because of the types of lines that we were using in each of the different ones. All right, let's make a new one. So File, New, 1600 by 1600. Let's go back to black. We got black. Got a mandala. Let's go to my favorite 8. And OK. What shall we do? We can do circles. Circles are hard for me because my hands are a little shaky, so they don't always draw in perfect circles. But they don't have to be perfect circles. They just want to be circle-like. Trying to think what I want to do next. Now I'll admit that I've lost track of where the selector thing is. To say, oh, where my stylus is. Somehow it's gotten down there. That's why I was having problems figuring out where it was going. Luckily, since everything is symmetrical, these things make me smile. All right, let's see if I can actually get this to happen. All right, now what else can I do? All right, what's the chance of actually getting a heart? I would have to start at the exact right middle part over here. So this might be one I have to undo once or twice once I figure out. All right, so if we bet that down, I'm going to go around. Oh, it actually worked. Oh, I am very pleased. I am very pleased. All right, is there anything else I want to add to this? You know, I'm tempted to add some things, but you know what? I could just leave it like that, and that way people could add whatever other little things they wanted to do to it. All right, I like that. So you never know what you're going to come up with when you sit here and play. And hopefully it is relaxing and calming. Mandala 7. That one makes me smile. Alrighty. So I'm here in the chat if you have questions. I am trying to practice and get better about watching that chat so that if anyone has questions, I can answer them. And of course, if you have questions after this goes public in a recorded sense, then I'm always happy to check back and see if anyone has questions and to answer them. All right, what else shall we do? Do another 1600 by 1600. I'm liking this pen size, or pencils, or brush. I'm liking this brush size. 10 pixels. Mandala, liking the 8. I like flowers, but we want to try something else. So let me try swooping swirly things. Let's see how that does. Swoopy swirl. See, a challenge with the middle area, with this brush being fairly thick, is that those lines blur together fairly quickly. Swoopy swirl. That's sort of neat. Sort of like a cassette tape has exploded all over the place. I have cassette tapes on the mind because I was just working with one of my cyanotype cassette tape images. But that's sort of fun. A little harder to color because you've got some sections in here that are big, wide open sections that don't have breaks in them, but that's all right. Some people like stuff like that. Save as. In fact, you can see it right there on the screen, the cassette tape cyanotype. Mandala 8. Alright, we'll do one more. So we got the brush selected, we got 10 pixels selected. Oh, let's do a little smaller. Let's go down to 8 pixels again, just so we can get some little detail in the middle area. And I mean, you could do the, oh here, let's do the Mandala 8 first before I start to chat. You could do a smaller brush size in the middle and then a bigger one as you go out, but again, following that whole coloring book mindset, they tend to have the same thickness of lines throughout everything, so I like to have the same thickness instead of having teeny lines in the middle and then thicker lines on the outside and all that other kinds of stuff. And it's also worth saying that if you wanted to get really detailed in the middle, you could do view zoom in. So now we can see very clearly what we're doing in here at this entry level, this lower level here. You can see exactly where the mouse is going. And then we go like that. And go like that. And now I could zoom out. So view, zoom out. And now we've got that inner area filled in with more detailed shapes, and we're able to really control what we're doing. And now as we come out here to what are probably going to be bigger shapes. Just trying to think how I'm going to do this. Alright, and we do that. And then we do this. Alright, no, I don't want that cross, so I'm going to edit, undo that. That's sort of one of the tricky parts of this is because it's going to duplicate it, you want to try to start your shape right on a if you care about it, right on a symmetry line so that as it's drawing it, it doesn't cross over itself. Otherwise you end up having to do what I'm doing right here, which is to do it in two parts. Alright. I got that. And that. Alright, so yeah, let's put something over here. This little spot looks a little neglected. So we'll put that. Oh. So that's what happens when your hand is a little wiggly. Alright, we could do this. Yeah, let's do it up here. I'm trying to figure out where that actually was a pretty good guess about where the starting symmetrical point was. Alrighty. Alright, so I am fairly pleased with that one. Save as Mandala 9. Alright, so there we go. We've got a number of different mandalas. Hopefully you've seen how this works, and if you've got a version of Photoshop that will let you do this, then you could give this a try and see how many different kinds of mandalas you want to make. And I'm sure there must be other software out there too that does symmetry kinds of options that lets you do this. So I highly recommend playing with mandalas, seeing what you make, and send me a message or a comment and let me know what your mandala is and what you have been up to. So I hope you have a wonderful week of creativity and fun. Thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, friend, all those kinds of things, follow, and I will talk with you soon. Let me know what else you'd like me to showcase or to play with here on either Photoshop or writing or whatever else you're interested in. And have a great afternoon.